So when you look at that D line, the plate being replaced, you're going to have rotation the same, maybe get more snaps for guys, or not. How's that going to look?
I think there's more players that are worthy of playing and have earned reps, and so yeah, I think we'll have a lot more kids play. Obviously, Cassius Howe, Albert Regis, DJ Hicks, Tyler Herro, those guys have stood out as guys that we need to get reps for. But I think, TJ Searcy, Dayon Hayes, we got a bunch of guys, those 3 young D tackles, all those guys are worthy. I think as they just continue to grow and earn reps, they'll get more reps.
Jay, I saw that. Sorry. I saw that. You get next.
Yeah, no, you go.
I saw that, Torian's on one of these preseason All-American teams. Have you seen that much growth in him? And secondly, just what have you seen from Scooby, being healthy?
Yeah. I think Scooby knocked some rust off the first, 4 or 5 practices. I think the last week he's really been at a high level, really, processing really well. Obviously, he's a really talented kid. I think he's running better. I've had Scooby for 4 years, so I think physically he's in a really, really good spot right now, I think, to have a good year. Torian, I thought, was one of the best linebackers in the country last year, so I'm not surprised he's on all those awards. I think he's worthy of them. I think he's a tremendous player, a tremendous leader. I do think he's improved his body a little bit this offseason with Tommy and Brad and those guys, and I think those 2 kids are going to have really good years.
Coach, you were talking about TJ. What has he been able to bring to the defensive line and the defense as a whole since transferring?
Yeah, I think TJ's really long. He's a really smart player. When he became available, when he went in the portal, and Mike asked Sean and I about him, we were very, we thought a lot of him when he was a freshman at Florida when we were there. So, I think he's a really smart kid. He's gotten stronger, and I think you're going to see him. I think he's become a really, really good run defender, a guy that can, takes up a lot of space and has become a better pass rusher. I think coming here, I think one of the things he wanted to do was play DN more and put his hand in the ground and be more of a true edge rusher. I think Sean and Stan Watson have done a great job with him. So, I think he's going to bring a lot. I think he'll play a lot of snaps.
When you look at this camp 3 weeks in, where you wanted to be and where you are, is that a line here? Or how do you?
Yeah, I think we're really happy with where we are. I think obviously the last week or so has been a lot of schematic things that we're putting in and getting covered that we may not run for until week 6 or week 8 or week 12 or whatever. So I think there's a lot on them right now. So there's probably a little bit more mistakes than you would like, but I think we've got a lot of defense in right now, and I think our secondary linebackers are really handling it well, and I think we feel pretty good about where we are right now.
We talked with Elko's time as a defensive coordinator here at third downs, where sometimes some really eclectic, really exotic things could happen on defense. You think in year 2 that can these guys are ready for that kind of stuff? Yeah.
So last year, we got to a point during the season where, the coverage piece of it was a little bit scarier for us than it has been, where I think now we feel really good about that. And we also had some edge guys, some D linemen that were pretty good one-on-one pass rushers. So it kind of morphed that way a little bit, where I think you'll see, I think Coach Elko's exotic stuff is in bloom. How about that? We got a pretty good plan coming, I think, third down wise.
We talked with Tyler Herro a few days ago. Just what have you seen from him this offseason? Just maybe the role you hope that he can play on that D-line this year. Yeah, I've been really impressed with T.O., and we knew he was a good player. He's probably a little more athletic than I thought he was going to be, but powerful, and I think he creates some matchup problems, right? To me, he's a little bit like an NBA power forward. You get him on a shooting guard, he can run him over, and you get him on a center, he can take him outside and dribble past him. So I think he's a unique player. I think he'll do we'll put him in some different spots, and I think he was kind of a guy we were looking for in the portal, a bigger end that can play inside too, kind of like Shamar Stewart, and I think he'll really bring a lot to our defense. I'm excited he's here.
I know a depth chart may never be in Sharpie, but where do you think you guys are just from the standpoint of these guys are with the ones, these guys are with the 2, and kind of what y'all are thinking?
I think every position's a little bit different, Carter. I think some guys are, I think Torian York's pretty penciled in pretty heavy, right? But I think there's other positions, I think Will Lee's probably pretty inked in. Where I think other positions, it's more like, hey, this guy's right now will probably start the game, but these 2 or 3 guys are going to play a lot. And I think at D-line especially, and there's a lot of kids that are going to play and have roles and I think really have good years for us.
Des said we'll see the best version of him come August 30th. How have you seen him grow this offseason?
So I love Des Ricks. I've known him since he was in 8th grade. I think unfairly, we asked him to play 650 snaps as a redshirt freshman at one of the more competitive, most challenging things that a young man can do, which is play press corner, field corner in the SEC. So I think he had a really good start to his career. I think obviously drifted at the end. He knows that. I know that. We're reminded of that very frequently. But I think he has really embraced this camp. I think he's been one of the shining stars of this camp, and I have a lot of faith and confidence in that kid.
Yeah, just going back to when he came here from Alabama, he mentioned the relationship that you guys had. Just how critical was that, especially when y'all were just trying to fill out a roster, and y'all went pretty heavy on defensive back, if I remember right.
Yeah, I remember when I got here, and the first day I was here, Mike pulled the curtain up on the depth chart. We had 2 corners. And I was like, oh, you left this part out when you offered me the job. But so, yeah, I think getting Will Lee here and the job Jordan Peterson has done with Will Lee and Dez and all of them is super impressive. But obviously, BJ Mays was a really good player for us that we got that time of year. So, I think Des Ricks, I think it's hard for people to understand that he was a freshman. He's going to be a sophomore next year. And he's played a lot of football, and he's going to be a really, really good player.
Since we haven't got to talk to you since the scrimmage, what was your biggest takeaways from the defense, what you all saw?
I thought our communication was really well. I thought we handled some challenging things. Colin's done a great job, I think, of giving us some really challenging looks and a lot of formations, and I think it's been really good for us, the communication piece. I think we're a year older. They've played together for a year now. I think the communication is better, which obviously was a critical, problem at the end last year that I think we've addressed.
Why was that a problem at the end?
I don't know how much time we got. At some point, you start getting into matchup issues, and you're trying to change things, right? You're trying to, you've got an issue here. Okay, we got to play this coverage different now, which changes this, and then they motion and they shift. And there's good coaches all over this conference, and so, I think as we've gotten a year older at all positions, I think they're more confident with what we're doing. I think we've made the defense a little more user-friendly, which is helping them. But I feel really good about where we are right now and our ability to go out there and communicate and line up and play.
You talk about the communication. Would you say, or what is maybe the biggest difference you've seen camp last year one?
Yeah, I just think they're more confident. They've all been in it for a year. Last year we lined up the first game of the season against a team that played in the national championship, and Will Lee was at Kansas State, and Des was at Alabama, and Scooby was at Florida, and Torian had been here, and Bryce had been here, but Marcus was at San Diego State, and Dalton hadn't really played much. Nick was at Purdue. We had all these pieces that we were trying to patch together, and they're all really good players and really good kids, but they hadn't played together. They hadn't been in the system. So I think now you go through a whole nother spring, you go through a whole nother summer of them doing it, and I think now you've got a group that they've kind of weathered the storm a little bit. I think you'll see a lot more cohesive unit.
To that, how crucial is roster retention when you talk about?
It's the most important thing in college football. You got to sign good players and keep them.
You mentioned Nick. Have y'all been able to reach out, connect?
I know. We've texted him. We've had some communication with him, but I don't want to speak for Nick. But I think he's feeling pretty good. So.
You talk about the communication the players have too. Has there been a moment this spring, summer, where you're like, all right, this is when it's starting to come together, and you felt that this was all clicking for you guys?
Yeah. I think there's a couple plays that stand out where this motion happened or this shift happened, and you saw the communication go back and forth. Sorry, and I feel like we. It ain't perfect, but we're getting a lot closer to what the standard needs to be for us to do what we want to do.
You mentioned Will is probably pretty penciled in on that one side of the corner. Just how competitive has the other corner position been?
Yeah, I think it's all. I think they're all competitive. But there is something where a kid, has done it at a high level and continues to work. And Will Lee has stepped on the gas. He's left no doubt that he's improving every day. So, I think the other position is extremely competitive.
What have you seen a lot out of Tyreek Chappelle, how he's been coming back? What have you seen from him?
I've been really impressed with Tyreek. I think Tyreek could go out and play corner in a minute. I was just talking to NFL scouts about that. I think he weathered the storm this summer, kind of like June, July, of the knee, starting to run, starting to play nickel, and all the movement you have to do at that position on a repaired knee. And I feel like health-wise, I think he's pretty good shape right now, and I think now he's back into football shape. He's a really good player, man. I'm proud of that kid. He's going to graduate from Texas A&M, and he's going to be a really good player this year.
We've heard a lot about explosive plays from the offense. How much of that is just good offense, and how much of that is like, and the defense still has some things to work through?
Yeah, I think there's probably a little bit give and take on both, but certainly Colin and Holman and those guys are doing a good job over there with throwing the football for sure.
Yeah, I suppose the plays on offense. What about turnovers? What's your philosophy? How much do you emphasize that in this fall camp?
I think our players understand now, after like how important they are, and some of the games we won, how turnovers affected the game. Mike does a great job teaching that. I think we have a really good plan for how we teach attacking the football. And I think we had some interceptions last year. We didn't create enough fumbles, and I think those are things that come in bunches. So I think this is our year to cause a few of those.
How does Daymond Patterson look now compared to the spring when he's kind of coming off an injury, probably maybe a little bit rusty?
I think when he got here, he was relatively healthy, and that kid's played a lot of football. I think Dayon's going to be a really good player, man. I think we're really confident in his ability to go in. I think he's got some real pass rush ability, and he's been awesome since he's been here.